Hey everyone, LiveLock here, and I've got a sort of experimental run today. So part of the reason that I liked Enhancement Shaman when I first decided to play him was all of the apparent options that we had
Five,
for
four,
legendaries and talents and
three,
covenants. So
two,
I decided this week to
one.
finally see like if those other ones that weren't PLA were actually worth anything. And this video is Doom wins with Necrolord. I did an experiment with Venthyr as well, and this one came out a little bit better, a little bit different, basically. So I'm going to go through and compare them basically to how PLA feels in relation to these things and how the playstyle differences come out. The first thing that I notice obviously is that I can't use my Wind Fury totem until I have to go into my Doom Winds window. So that's like very awkward and a little clumsy. It definitely could be different. It could have been like a spell. I feel that would have been better. But once you're in the window, it's actually pretty nice. So with Venthyr, you basically just send your chain harvests, and that was fine. That worked well. But I found that I mean, to me, the reason that you would even consider playing Doomwinds would be something like you really need to pack uncapped AoE into a burst window. So to me, that meant that Necrolord like seemed the more reasonable way to go. Even though the guides on Wowhead seem to pair it with Venthyr, I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe just like as like a reasonable default for people. I don't know, but Necro seems better because you can use Primordial Wave to get like a giant haste buff for pretty much all of your Doomwinds window. And then you can get into this really fun tight loop where you just press Crash Lightning and Chain Lightning over and over again. And Crash Lightning triggers Wind Fury with Wind Fury Totem, so it like basically is like a big uncapped AoE attack when your totem is down. So this pull went a little bit better because we lost. So here, what do I do? I'm trying to do when I come in. I'm trying to just maybe flame shock something on the way in. Send primordial wave. Do a lava lash to spread it. That's what I've done right now. At this point, I've lava lashed, so I have enough flame shocks out to actually do something. I'm about to use lightning bolt to get my haste buff. I don't have dogs or IQD, so it'll just be a normal raw Doom Winds window. I have some things tracked over here just so I am aware of them. Like this buff over here is like the stacking buff you get from the first tier talent when you're playing the wind talent, whatever that middle talent is. And this just I want this here because I want to make sure that I don't use earthquake or sunder until that's at 5. I think that's important. It's very confusing actually because I don't know if Wind Fury attack scales off of the attack that caused it or if it's just like constant overhead. It's very unclear. Like the tooltip doesn't really do a good job of explaining this like whatsoever. But so I'm gonna get into my window. So I have the window open right now. I have the haste up. I just dropped my totem. I have 12 seconds, and I should be able to just press crash chain with this much haste. So chain, crash chain. Like that's kind of crazy. And you can see over here the numbers aren't like nuts at this pack size. That's the problem. The big problem for me so far is I picked DoS because it has like the biggest pulls that I can find, but in a pug, they aren't often enough and big enough still, I think, to justify going Doomwinds. Although the damage is obviously like it's fine. It's fine damage. Like here, this is a pretty good pull, but it's hard to say because this was like a bloodlust pull. So I got more Crash Lightnings than would be normal in a Doomwinds window into this pull. But after these two pulls, like we go into wings like a car next, where like there's no more giant pulls, right? And then we go into Gnome Wing next, where there's even fewer giant pulls. There's just like one pulls. So I think if I'm comparing it to PLA, I feel like in most situations, PLA will win out by a large margin just because of how flexible PLA is. You can do pretty much everything with PLA, up to, I mean, obviously 6 targets is our cap for yeah. So here, I constantly have this problem of like, now that I have damage windows again, I have to use them. So I'm always thinking like, do I hold? Do I spend? Which would never happen in PLA. PLA has no damage windows really. Like it just has dogs, and dogs are good enough, wherever you want to send them. It doesn't really matter. And here, I'm still worrying about windows. Like I can't even drop my Wind Fury totem sometimes because I'm tracking it here because like if I drop it, I'll trigger the Doomwinds window, and then I get no value out of Doomwinds. It's very very weird how it's tied to the dropping of Wind Fury Totem. But I can at least drop it. I try to drop it like just before it goes off. But yeah, PLA is just so much more flexible. Like you can do single target, you can do funnel, you can do you can run mastery, which is nice because a lot of your attacks scale off mastery. Here, you apparently don't run mastery. You run crit. Well, I guess I haven't really tried running mastery, but it's my understanding that mastery wouldn't affect crash lightning damage or the Wind Fury damage. So then I've spec'd over here for primarily for crit. I think mostly because I was doing a Venthyr build before this, so I wanted to have the big crit for Venthyr. Another video that I'm going to put out is comparing PLA to Storm Sun Something's Fiery Demise, the fire dude, like the kind of like the meme build for us where we use the elemental legendary. That actually that build is kind of fun. I don't mind that build. I think I actually like it better than this build, to be honest. This build could be really, really good if you have a coordinated group that actually makes use of all of the uncapped AoE potential, which is not the case here, I don't think. Like, so, okay, I probably use it here, yeah. So I drop it, I go in, I start doing my Crash Lightning cycle. I don't have quite enough haste at I guess 74 isn't quite enough to just alternate between Crash Lightning and Chain Lightning. So I guess maybe I would have to try to get 5 targets in the future, which would mean that I have to actually, you know, run in and Flame Shock something. But I mean, it's not bad damage, but PLA would have been a lot more damage, and I could have prioritized the Hexer in my Lava Lash windows, and he would have been dead like a lot faster. It would have been something that, like, with this build, you don't really have great single target. It's better single target than like the Sunbreaker Fiery Demise one, because at least you have, like, you know, Storm Strike talent, and you can trigger your Wind Furies off of Storm Strike, so it's like a single target, you know, buff in that case. But yeah, so it's not. It's very fun though. It's very fun though. So here's another 4-pack. Like, this is, I mean, this is good damage. Actually, I'm not even using. Okay, now I am using it. So I'm kind of zoned out a little bit, but I'm still doing decent damage. I guess that was a bad time to drop it. Now I won't have it on Hakar though. See, that's the problem. Like, if I go this build, then I constantly have to pick my damage windows, and now I don't have anything for the boss. I mean, which is the right choice, I think, for a fortified key. But for PLA, I wouldn't have to make that choice. I would just be like fine all the time, basically. So we kill these dudes, purge them off, and then I go into the car, and I guess I do have it back in time. One big drawback to PLA in this season, not PLA, to Doomwinds, is that, like, the weird debuff internal timer of Doomwinds means it doesn't benefit from So it's like it gets no cooldown reduction value at all, and this is like a huge cooldown reduction season. So the cooldown reduction is like massive for PLA because it cools down. It CDRs the Lava Lash cooldown as well as the Fire Nova cooldown, and that does like massive AoE damage. Even if it's capped at 6 targets for like, you know, what it's rooted on, it still hits everything around those 6 targets. So it doesn't scale as well, but it is a lot of damage. And doing that like every 6 seconds is really, really strong. And I still don't know why they do Chain Harvest build with this. Like, I don't think nothing really synergizes to me in Venthyr with this build, other than the fact that you might favor crit, so you would probably prefer to gear for crit if you're Venthyr anyway. But the Necrolord's so strong. Like, we do get like mastery. So basically, I'm running a Bonesmith, and we get Carver's Eye with this, and that's obviously not great because it's mastery, so it's not a huge deal. But that just means that I can run in, I can do all of my mastery stuff, like I can Fire Nova them, I can Lava Lash them to spread the fire, the Flame Shocks, and that's just like 3 extra damage at the top. That's pretty much passive. It goes away, obviously. Carver's Eye goes away unless you like happen to refresh it, which isn't always possible. But I mean, comparing that with like Venthyr, like, I really just get more Chain Harvest, which is nice. And I'll compare the damage profiles at the end between a couple of builds, where like you can see pretty clearly that like this Necrolord build is really like all in on this one window, whereas the damage profile of Venthyr is a bit more spread out and uniform. Like you can use Chain Harvest to sort of like smooth out the gaps in between the Doom Winds windows. Um, I don't know if it totally makes up for it. Like it's definitely not. It's a weird build. I think you can only justify doing it if you really want the off healing for something in particular, because PLA obviously is way better at sustain. But I guess with PLA you can't do uncapped AoE, but there's just not enough uncapped AoE in any dungeon to justify the difference in damage. I don't think, and the opportunity cost of like not being able to funnel and all these other things. So like here, I have Doom Winds, but I'm not going to use it on this one mob when we have like 7 mobs coming up. So I don't even get Wind Fury Totem because I can't put down my totem. This is very, very weird. It's a very weird choice. Good thing our rogue is popping off here because no one else is doing shit. He's doing like 20k and we're all doing like 5. This pally is like actually pumping pretty hard. I think in the end I'm used to getting like around 15k in DoS right now, I think, and I finished this one with like 13 if I recall. But so it's definitely lower overall damage. So it would have to be, you'd only even consider it if it was like massive pulls very often for most of the dungeon. That had to die, right? Because the longer they live, the more your damage approaches, like, you know, what it would have been had you just been a sustain build. So I'm gearing up for, I just did my haste buff, my dogs went out, my IQD went out, I'm doing crash lightning, crash chain, crash chain. It's like kind of cool actually. Oh, but then I die. Yeah, because the pally dies. I was so mad at the pally. I'm like my window, my Doom Winds window. How could you die? But at least I can get a little bit more off with my necro zombie talent that I hate. Yeah, that was a big rip. So this pull, I'm just gonna skip this pull and spare you guys the trouble. Oh, I literally fell off the. Why couldn't it skip past that? Why did it have to show that? I'm gonna skip past this pull just because like it's a cluster. Like once the tank dies, it's just like, yeah, we spend like forever doing this. So that obviously hurts, you know, the overall DPS that I claim to have, but it wasn't that big of a difference that it, you know, it would have been 2k higher like I expected to be. So yeah, pallies are very squishy if they mess up anything basically. So here we are, like normal pug route. We're just going through and doing like basically all the stuff. I think we still skip the hallway, which is nice. Having woe this season makes people actually inclined to learn how to do that. So I think I'm glad that will be more of the meta. So here we are again. I have my Doom Winds coming up. If it were PLA, I would have been doing optimal damage the entire time on this guy. Except now, I have to decide, like, do I use it on him, or do I wait for the next 5-pack? Which, of course, I wait, because, like, why am I going to use it on him? But that means that, look at my damage. 4.8, I'm under the Warlock. I mean, this is not a great pull, obviously, for anyone, really, I guess, to do damage, besides a rogue who can just, like, Cloak of Shadows through all that nonsense, or feint, or whatever he does. I think here I get a little impatient, and I sense that the pally is doing just this dog, and I cannot live like that, so I pull the rest of them for him. And it ends up a little bit tough, because I think people end up dying. I think people died at this. Yeah, 2 people died right there. But that's not great. But it was in the name of Doom Winds. It had to be done. So here I am. I got my haste buff up. I'm just doing Doom Wind stuff, alternating back and forth between them. I use my Primordial Wave buff in the middle there, which is probably not optimal Doom Winds play. Yeah, that doesn't actually trigger anything for you. That's unfortunate, but I guess whatever. This is like the second time I'm doing it. I'll have to figure out how to be better about it in terms of muscle memory. But I mean, that wasn't that much damage. Like, for me, this thing has to be like a ton of damage in the damage windows, which obviously means it has to be lots of uncapped AoE pulls. The rest of this is like more or less the same. Let me skip ahead to the gnome boss, which would be right after this skip. I think we do the slimes at the end there, unfortunately. But this is like a decent look at like the single target damage. I think I try to get I might get the crit buff from the gems that pop up, but the single target isn't actually that bad in the windows. That's the thing. So I'm working on getting my Primordial Wave haste buff up, but the tank takes so long in all these pulls that I always drop my Maelstrom, so it really punishes you. So I couldn't have gotten the the 40% haste thing just because the rogue is like stealing my stuff here. Just because I didn't have the Maelstrom to do it. So the single target damage isn't that bad, not that great. I think it probably might be better for something like a damage amp phase on SOA or the first boss of Mists. Like that could be something that works. It could do more than PLA on average. Like if you were to run Mists 100 times and then look at your damage output from it. Oh, looks like I didn't do my Wind Fury weapons in the start. Yeah, so it could be. I think it's better on average, but the high point of PLA on those things is like way higher than the high point of this, because you might end up with an with a Lava Lash window, right? And then you're just like doing crazy damage as PLA, whereas it's pretty consistent. Like you can know what you can expect with the Doomwinds build, more or less. But yeah, so you see I'm going down. Just like not that great. I think I'll skip ahead to the Ardenweld wing, because this is like, okay, if I don't pop off in this wing, then I don't understand like the benefit of the build, to be honest. So we skip down this hallway, and we're looking at the final big push of the dungeon, and I think I usually go up like about 2k DPS or so as PLA from this point forward if we were to do Ardenweld last, but I have obviously no Maelstrom again, so I'll have to start from scratch. I don't know why the pulls take so long. So we go in, I'm doing crash stuff to try and build Maelstrom. I'm going to do the dogs. I'm going to do the dogs? No, what am I doing? Not sure what I'm doing right now. Why am I doing nothing? Okay, dogs, wave, spread, haste, totem, crash, sunder, crash, and then alternate, crash, alternate, crash, alternate. This is, actually, while this is going on, I can show on the screen more or less what the damage breakdown of this looks like. This would be the first pull in Ardenweld, and it looks like this. Basically, here's all of my damage before the pull, here's all of my damage in the window, and then here's the damage after the pull. So you can see this is like not a very balanced build, right? Like all of your damage is going in that window. So here is just like a 4-pull, and it's like this probably wasn't the best showcase, to be honest, of Doomwinds, just because like, but I mean that's kind of the point, because you have no control over the pulls. So if you're looking to play Doomwinds when you're pugging, then that's going to be like a very sad time, because you're just going to be constantly like hoping and wishing that he's going to pull big so you can actually leverage the one benefit you offer, which is uncapped AoE windows, but you'll never actually get to do it. I'm not sure what he's doing now either, but we are just waiting long enough, I guess, so that my Maelstrom goes away. And then we don't even get a big urn pull, to be honest. So that, like, this was like the one thing I was looking forward to, and we don't even get a large urn pull window to do Doomwinds in. So I just used Primordial Wave. I'm looking. I got IQD. I got that down, and now I'm doing the crash lightning rotation, crash chain, crash chain. I step into a puddle, a silence puddle, which is just like heartbreaking. But man, all of these things just confirm to me, like, damage windows are just, once you open the door to a damage window build, then you just inherit all the problems with damage window builds. Like, this is what I was doing basically with Shadow Priest. Like I had to basically hit these damage windows, which were for Shadow Priest, they were Void Form, they were Void Eruption, and if you don't hit that, then you're screwed, right? Like, all your damage is in that window. If anything happens, if like Quaking goes off, if you mess up Quaking, if you get booped by a Volcanic, if you step in a puddle, that's like 2 globals out of your window gone. And when your window is like 12 seconds long, it's not that's like a massive amount of your potential damage is just like out the window. And here this is probably a decent sized, no, even this is like, I mean, what are these? These are 1 2 3 4 5. This is five 4 mobs? This is 4 mobs. So I think it's actually the case that on every single one of these pulls so far. Oh, now we got 5. Yeah, I guess he'll be bolstered. But on every one of these, like, PLA would have been optimal because, you know, it would have been 6 targets, could have had my Flame Shock, and then I'm just buffing up PLA to the max that it could be. Tap targeting through, buffing. If I got one Hot Hands window, they'd all have the debuff on them, so they'd all be taking increased damage. The downside, I guess, there is that it's a ramp-up time. So on something like, maybe Doom Winds could be nice on a Tyrannical week when everything dies within 10 seconds anyway for for like weekly keys. Then you can actually get all your damage out and not have to worry about the ramp-up time. But that's not this week. This is a fort week on the key that's still high enough that most people think it's like higher than they want to bother with if they're going for weekly keys. But let me skip ahead after this to Mozala, because nothing else really interesting is going to happen over here. And Mozala was the one where I was like surprised that I couldn't actually kill the totem on PLA on Tyrannical last week. Like I actually failed to kill the totem in a 20. So I was curious, like, would Doom Winds help out at all in this department? And I think I actually destroyed the totem here. But it's obviously it's hard to compare because 17 and it's fortified, but it was a lot more damage than I thought than I usually do with PLA. Usually with PLA, it's like a slow ramp, and I wait for a hot hands window, and kind of just like linearly destroy the totem. Here, I'm planning on using my Doom Winds before we go down, because 1 minute should be enough to get it back up. So I have it down here, which means I waste a lot of it, because I have to run out. I should have ran out towards the other side, so I could have used the but I'm doing decent damage here. I think most of it is probably padding on the relics at this point, to be honest. But I make a point now to kill as fast as I can. So there, he's dead. Because we've had like a couple of instances where tanks would just like, you know, fall over because they get Mozala tank bustered right after the debuff and the tank buster from or they have to move in some weird spot and they end up like, you know, making one of their party members get melee'd because they're too far. So we're about to, I think I end up pulling aggro later on. That might have been another run, but so here we're going off to kill the totems. And I can't put my I could put it down because I had 1 second left on Doom Wind, so I put my totem down. I'm getting my buff set up. I do my dogs, my IQD, base buff, totem, and now we're just going Storm Strike whenever we can, basically, and then everything else to fill up the gaps. Get hit by that. That's okay. Oh, he's dead. Okay, actually, I wasn't even. That was fast enough that I didn't even. Let me rewatch this. Like, I feel like that was pretty quick. So that's like a benefit. Maybe I could consider doing Doom Winds on like a higher Tyran key where trash dies fast enough that it's all in the window anyway. Yeah, that was really fast actually. So that's one thing maybe. Maybe Tyran, it could be good when we need damage windows. Like, I mean, that was pretty good. I'll have to do a couple more tests though, obviously with PLA. But then we're basically done. So I think what I want to go over now is just quickly like the differences in damage profiles between these different builds. So I've got like a couple of logs here. You can see this log. This is a sample damage profile from like a mist that I did. Like this is what you can expect with a PLA. Like with PLA, you've got pretty consistent damage made up of mostly like your fire moves. Like you got lots of flame shocks and then your lava lashes. For me, they're usually closer than this, but I guess this one maybe dragged on a bit, or I was just unlucky with lava lash procs. But it's pretty uniform, right? You can see it. This is what it looks like when you're doing Doom Winds. Like you've got this little window over here, and you better fit as many Wind Fury triggering spells into this window as you can. So your top damage will always be Wind Fury attack because that's your totem. I think this was this is the pull this is the run that we just looked at, and if we go to like the entire boss and trash, yeah, like a quarter of all of my damage was literally Wind Fury attack. So that means a quarter of all of my damage happened in 12-second windows, like over and over again, which is a very different damage profile than you do with PLA. And just for comparison, this is the same pull, that first pull in DoS with Doom Winds and Chain Harvest as a Ventir, and it's definitely not as extreme, right? It's not as extreme as the builds from Necrolord. Like you have Chain Harvest to smooth out lots of things, and I guess you just don't get as big Wind Fury attack windows because you don't have giant haste buffs for every single one of them. You do have like a little verse buff, right? That's something. Or I guess you can try to go with the first Soulbind there and maybe go Thrill Seeker and line them up, but it's so unreliable. That's the same reason I didn't go Gemstone Arsenal as a Bonesmith, because I just didn't want to deal with like hoping that the procs would line up, and like what if I don't drop my totem one pull, like then I have to delay it for the next Gemstone Arsenal proc. Like it seems like it's just too much. So I think overall the I like the playstyle a lot. It's very different. It offers some unique advantages. I don't think those advantages could actually be utilized or exploited very easily in pug content, especially at lower keys. So I think PLA is basically always the move, no matter what, as long as you're doing Mythic Plus so far. Unless you really, really plan for it in like a coordinated group, that you would be the uncapped AoE person, and there would be another high damage burst AoE class, such that things wouldn't live forever after you both use your burst windows. Otherwise, it would have been, the right move to just go sustain and kill it in the same amount of time anyway. So, yeah, hopefully this helps somebody else and get some answers for like all the flexibility that we have in terms of builds. That's definitely one of the cool things about Enhanced right now is that flexibility. And if nothing else, honestly, it was fun to play with, right? Like it's really fun to go into those windows and just alternate between Crash and Chain. Like you alternate between Lava Lash and something else during your hot hand windows. Like that's really fun still, but not gonna be the play for me for a while until I can figure out like the perfect scenario for it. So let me know if you guys have different experiences or if you have any other questions about this. But I'll put out a video soon similar to this with Sunbreaker's Fiery Demise, which is also fun, but a similar conclusion where it's like not really the one to go with at the moment. But I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.